that there was no reportable action, and also would like to report that I recused myself from item 4 and was not in the room for item 4. And I guess, Debbie, are you gonna, do we need to take a roll call to close the meeting?
No, you can just adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn?
Just call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move to adjourn the special meeting.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so welcome everyone. We're here tonight for the February 20th, 2019 San Mateo County Harbor District Board meeting. And we're going to start with public comment.
No, roll call.
Oh, roll call, sorry.
Hey, Commissioner Reardon,
Present.
President Brennan,
Here?
Commissioner Chancarelli,
Present?
Commissioner Lorenz,
Here.
Commissioner Matoush.
So next is item B, which is public comment. And I don't have any slips. If anybody has a public comment they'd like to make, if you could please let me know now. Okay. So next we have commissioner comments. Are there any?
Well, I do.
Okay.
I attended my first CSBA meeting a week ago, and I just want to say how beneficial it was. It was really great. It was a well-attended meeting because it was for the election of the LAFCO representative. So I had the opportunity to meet quite a few other special district representatives and learn about what their work is, and I plan on continuing to attend.
Great. Thank you for attending. Do you want to tell us what the results of that election were?
Yes.
Okay.
His name just flew right out of my head.
Rick Lohman. I
Thank
was
you.
going to congratulate Rick Lohman for being the person, because he's from the coast side too, so I'm glad he went to that meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
he was elected.
He was elected. Okay, so he'll be sitting on the LAFCO board
Correct.
as the special district rep.
representative.
Is there another special district rep or just the one?
Just the one.
Okay, great. Any other
Yeah,
commissioner comments?
I heard about the results, and so I just want to congratulate Rick. I know he's a coast side resident for being elected, and I know he's going to do a great job.
Okay, great.
We'd like to report out that I attended 2 meetings for the county. One was Climate Change Committee from the county's program. That was in Redwood City, and then I also attended, I spoke at the county's King Tide meeting here in Murata and just told the public and answered questions about what the Harbor District was doing with respect to climate change.
Great. And my comment is that we held a board retreat. That was our last meeting at the Half Moon Bay Yacht Club, and it was a productive meeting, and we're looking forward to getting feedback from our staff related to the goals and objectives and priorities that were discussed during that meeting at our March meeting, I believe. Does that sound about right?
Most likely. Martin
Okay.
hasn't compiled.
Okay, well, in the next couple of months,
Yeah.
we'll be getting feedback from that meeting, and I just appreciate the yacht club allowing us to use the space and the participation. So just wanted to mention that. Next, we have the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything off of consent?
I'll move to approve the consent
Okay,
calendar.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You want to do a roll call?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should do it.
Okay.
Commissioner Chancarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Reardon,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. So next we have item D, which are discussion items, and The first item is computers, electronic communications, and social media policy. Approve policy 6.2.4, adopt resolution number 1904. And this is something that Julie's been working on. So I'd love to hear your report.
Good evening, President Brennan and Commissioners. This was a group effort to put together this computers, electronic communications, and social media policy. The last adopted policy was in 2005. It was adopted by this commission, and on January 10th of 2019, the Harbor Commission directed the interim general manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Fondani Partners to develop and implement a social media plan. On February 4th, the Social Media Public Outreach Committee met to discuss, among other items, scope and alternatives for a social media policy. A draft was presented to include the social media components and to update the original 2005 policy, and then additional review was proposed by our legal counsel, Mr. Barkin. This policy had many pieces to it. Fondini and Partners did a lot of it, and some of the board members did a lot in 2016, and this is the outcome of that. There was one item in here that references the retention policy, and my recommendation at this point is to direct staff to bring forward a amended records retention policy that will include more detail on the social media component of that policy. I believe that this evening it can be approved as written, and that would be the recommendation to approve the resolution attached to the policy and the policy.
Okay. We don't have any public comment on this item. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I actually have some questions. But I'll wait until my turn. I don't know if anyone else has.
Go ahead.
So, thanks for doing this, Julia. Just some questions for clarification for my purposes. I just a few. If you look on page 2 or 10-4, it said, it's item F. Staff is not authorized to access personal email accounts on district equipment. So how does that work with the current PRA laws that require that if there's a PRA request for personal items from, or district business on personal devices, I mean, the staff usually has to make that request, right? That's how it's been in the past, where the staff goes to the commissioner to whom the request was made. So I'm not, how does that, and maybe it's,
Yeah.
I don't know how that works with this section F.
Well, there is a differentiation between commissioners and staff.
You know, it says staff is not authorized to access, so what,
Personal email
Okay.
account, so that means that I can't take my district cell phone and go on Gmail or
okay,
on my computer and access my personal email account. Just a lot of it is security and.
okay, I get it, okay, it wasn't just clear, so you're saying that I got it. It's not gonna be in conflict with the PRA request.
Right,
Okay,
just
but
to,
do you see how I can?
yeah, you just, yeah, let me just chime in. In the past, when we were asking about, responding to PRA requests, we were asking commissioners to check their personal equipment,
Yes.
and that was the form we would give them for any personal emails.
Okay.
This is different, this is saying we can't use district equipment. The the computers and the cell phones and access our personal emails and personal information, so
Okay.
it's.
Okay.
Just keeping like a separation between.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that it was clear in my mind. If you look at page 10-5, item C2 under operations, retention, refer to the district's approved records management. So I'm just curious as to why approved has been struck. Is it because it's redundant? Because I can hear someone say, oh, but it wasn't approved. I mean,
Yeah, that's a question for me, because that was my strikeout. So
Okay.
it seems that if you have a retention policy, the board has approved it, you don't have, and it just seemed to be
Redundant.
overkill and redundant. Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
I just thought, thanks for that. And then finally on page 10-7, under E, prohibited content, it says authorized district personnel. So is that like staff, or is it board members, or both? Who's considered authorized district personnel? Do y'all see where I am?
Which section are you, E, what?
E prohibit, oh, I'm sorry, it's the first full sentence.
Yes.
For, it says for district social media sites, certain types of content are prohibited and may be removed by authorized district personnel. What's the definition of authorized district personnel?
Somebody that the general manager authorizes, I would
Well,
assume?
I mean, or is it a board member too? I mean, I don't know, that's what I'm saying. What is an author, who
Well,
is
we're
an
not
author?
personnel.
Well, I don't know, some people might think we are, so that's why I'm asking, I just want clarification.
Okay. So, Bill, do you wanna chime in?
Yeah, I
Or
think
John?
that's a good point. I think the point of it is to prevent someone who wasn't authorized to go in and mess with content or remove content. So it's a very good question on what is authorized personnel. If the board likes a clarification in here, I could work with staff to provide
I
clarifying
would feel more
language.
comfortable
Yeah,
with that.
we could work with staff to provide clarifying language on what is an authorized person for social media accounts.
I
And
mean, I
it's
don't know,
probably
did
as
the
simple
committee
as,
discuss that? I don't know, I don't wanna get ahead of the committee either, cause
Um,
Nancy and Sabrina are on that committee.
Well,
No, I think it's fine to define it.
yeah, I'm okay with defining it. I think that clearly it's certainly not going to be a board member that's doing this. So I read this as personnel meaning staff, but since I think earlier in this, it clarifies what staff and board is, right? And that's codified in this somehow, like there's some clarification relating to.
That's not, yeah, but,
So maybe we wanna use the word staff instead of personnel.
no, it's
And-
authorized.
And so authorized, I think we could just say something like authorized by the general manager, right? Just to
Well-
clarify? Would that make sense?
I agree, that's one way to handle it.
Okay, so,
I'm afraid that I don't want pressure on the general manager. I mean, I would rather have a definition, but.
well,
it's
who
up
else
to
would
the-
authorize?
I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm just concerned.
Okay, well, I think that the general manager is the decider of anything related to the staff, and since this is something the staff would be doing, it would be the GM who would authorize. And I think we have other examples of the GM authorizing things in here, so it would be consistent with other language that in this document.
Yeah, I would have to say that authorized is, is a term that's used frequently. We
No, I get it.
We,
It has different definitions for different people.
we know, of course, that that you're allowed to do something, or you've not been authorized or allowed to do something. So staff that have not been authorized to do something would naturally not do it. You wouldn't. I don't think staff would go into to our website and remove anything, or into our social media and remove anything without being told they could do so. I would have no problem myself. I think with making it, the authorization have to come from the general manager, and the general manager, of course, would delegate the authority to authorize to potentially directors as well,
Yeah,
to their subordinates, and then also potentially to our, for instance, a Fondini, to our consultant that is working at present under the direction of the general manager, potentially cleaning up some of our entries to our website or social media.
Okay.
So
So maybe-
authorized personnel could extend out past staff.
The immediate staff, yeah, I get that.
so
Okay.
maybe we say, types of content are prohibited and may be removed by, instead of saying personnel, I think we should say staff, because we've used staff elsewhere.
How about general manager or his or her designee?
Yep,
Mhm.
that's perfect.
Okay. I'm not trying to make it difficult, I just don't want there to be any questions.
It's good to clear it up, I think.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm fine with that change. Any others?
No, thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Are we ready for a motion?
Well, I have a couple things, but I want to make sure everyone's spoken first.
Yeah.
I don't have any specific, excuse me, any specific changes. I think this is a good start on a document. It's kind of cumbersome to read, and it's hard to find things, and it definitely reads as a, no offense, but legal document. And it's trying to cover every little detail,
Very
possible thing that could go
prescriptive.
wrong. And by doing so, it's become kind of a cumbersome document. That's just my comment. And, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with approving it. Maybe come back to it some other time, once we've got a little experience with this kind of work.
You need to make it go back into the committee or to the board, or what do you mean? I mean, cause I agree,
We
it's a
can
work in
decide
progress.
I think we
Yeah.
can decide to review it later, because,
Okay.
you know, when we proceed down this road, we might find some things we may want to change. So
Mhm.
I'm good with it the way it is.
My sense of it to get started is that it certainly covers all the bases that I can
Yeah.
think of. I
Yeah,
didn't,
And
I
more,
wasn't able to, yeah, and more. I
Yes,
was
sir.
able to come up
Yeah.
with something that was nice.
yeah.
well, thanks for all your work on it.
So, I agree with, Commissioner Lorenz about, maybe there's, in the future, a way we could try to simplify it. I think this isn't really an old document that, never got approved, and so we're trying to work with this older document, and, it's very prescriptive and detailed, and kind of is more like a manual. But, I'm comfortable with approving it, but I would like, it sounds like it needs to come back anyway, right? Because we're talking about, what was it you wanted to,
Just as a follow-up to redo the records retention policy to address more information regarding social media content and how long we need to retain that and how we retain that.
so it wouldn't be this coming back, it would be the records retention policy.
That's correct.
Okay, well,
Yeah, that's,
to follow up on that, I think the records retention policy needs to come back anyway. So maybe that could come to the policy committee, and we could talk about that before it comes to the board, just so that we're not wasting a lot of time. Might be a good thing to do, to look at that, in the policy committee. Cause I'd like to take a new look at the records retention policy. I know we changed the records retention policy not that long ago, and, it would be good to look at it. But I wouldn't mind seeing this come back in the not too far off future, because I do think it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, trying to find certain things in here. And I think if we did maybe like a little bit of reordering in titles, not so much about the actual content, that might make it easier to find stuff. I was trying to find if there was anything in here about personal email, like what, okay, because it covers like the email that you're not supposed to send from your district email, things that would be discriminatory or, whatever,
Is
inappropriate.
that on one of these sections, Sabrina,
There-
that you're referring, or are you talking about the overall thing? Because I got that too.
Yeah, just kind of overall, they're just something, but it doesn't really get into the kind of email that you might send that might be offensive to staff or the board that is coming from your personal email. And that would seem to be more of an issue for the harassment policy.
It does say though, under 3FA.
Which page?
10-4, 4-A. Oh, you were talking about personally.
Yeah, it seems to
Right.
pretty well cover emails, like district email, like I feel like it covers district email,
Mhm.
but it doesn't touch on, people have their personal email, which they use too. And if we're not covering that in here,
Where are we?
where are we? Are we covering it? I think we are covering it in our harassment policy, but
Yeah.
that, then when I started to think that through, I was like, well, wait a minute. Why are we trying to cover stuff in this that's covered in another policy? And if we are trying to cover stuff in two different policies, like the retention policy was covered in here and now that's not happening. Maybe we need to take stuff that should be in the harassment policy out of here so that it's all found in one location, so it's not confusing, or we need to make sure that they match up somehow. So I'm just wondering about cross-referencing those two policies, because there's a lot in here about harassment stuff, but I'm not looking at it side by side with, I'm looking at Bill, because he's a lawyer, but I'm not looking at the two side by side going, do these things make sense next to each other? And maybe Julie may have done that, but it just seems like in doing that, you would have to pick out all these little things throughout this multi-page, how many pages is this thing? 8 pages, 8-page policy to try to do a comparison to see if everything's covered. So my suggestion is that maybe we can find a way to lump everything that might be redundant in the harassment policy into one section so that it's all like under one heading and one section of this policy. And then look at whether or not it needs to be in here. And if it does need to be in here, is it consistent with the harassment policy? But I do think I'm comfortable with just going ahead with this for now because I think it's good enough and I think we can always fine tune it down the road. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at with it. Any thoughts on like timing of how we could, or, if it would be a big deal to do that?
I think it's at the board's pleasure. I mean,
Yeah.
Does anybody support this idea? I mean,
Well, I
Sure,
think it's
I'd
a
like
good
move
start
ahead
to
with
approve
this.
it.
yeah,
And then-
yeah, but we have to,
and then
if we are gonna do that, we have to direct
With the
staff.
intent to, with the intention that down the road, we're going to also be reviewing policies that may be duplicative.
Yep, that's a
Yeah.
good point. Okay, I'm good with that, and then we can look at those more holistically, because I think there's a lot to look at there. Cool, okay, so did somebody make a motion?
I'd like to move that we approve policy 6.2.4, computers, electronic communications, and social media, and adopt resolution number 19-04, including the proposed revision on page 10.7 to section 4, first sentence in paragraph E, as stated by Julie, which I think reads, removal of the word personnel and the insertion of general manager or his or her designated designee. Thank you.
And I'll second.
Great.
Okay. Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tranquilli,
Aye.
President Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Riley.
Aye.
Awesome. Okay, so next we have item 11, approve and adopt the updated salary schedule from 2012 to present per CalPERS requirement resolution number 19-03. And this is Anita's item.
Good evening, Commissioners. In December of 2018, just 2 months ago, CalPERS performed an audit, and the San Mateo County Harbor District received a public agency review audit, which not just the district, but a lot of agencies. In fact, this is the final audit report, which is 237 pages long, and I didn't think you guys wanted me to make copies of this, so I didn't provide that as an attachment. But we can all definitely put it on the website so that if you do choose to look at it, it'll be there. So just to give you a little background, they only found one finding for the Harbor District, and what CalPERS found was that on one of our wage and salary schedules that we put on the website, we did not include the word annual under the headings for the executive and management positions and their salaries. For example, if you look at attachment 2 of the staff report on page 11-8, they said that for that pay schedule, this is the revised pay schedule, but for this pay schedule, the original pay schedule that became effective July 1st, 2014, we did not have the word annual in those 2 columns on the right where we have the salary ranges for the executives. So we just assumed, since those salaries were in the thousands, we didn't need to put the word annual there. However, CalPERS wanted us to include that. And without this word, they said that there was no time base for these executive and management pay rates, and therefore we weren't meeting the requirements of the California Code of Regulations, section 570.5. As far as the remedy for this finding, CalPERS required 3 things. These are also outlined in the staff report on page 11-2. However, just to recap what it says, first, they said that the agency, the district, must update their 2012 to current publicly available pay schedules to make sure that they all include the time base for the executive and management employees' pay rates, which we've done in the attached salary schedules once we looked at all of them and we revised them. The number 2, they asked us, the agency must present the updated 2012 to current publicly available pay schedules to their governing body for approval and adoption, which is what we're doing today here. And 3, they asked that the agency must provide the approved and adopted 2012 to current publicly available pay schedules and approved board meeting minutes to resolve this observation. And of course, we will do that after this meeting, once it's approved and once we have the minutes. Also, the district was asked by CalPERS to work with their designated representative and to have this issue resolved by April 30th, 2019. While we were updating the salary schedules going back to 2012 to include the time-based element, we were communicating with the CalPERS personnel to make sure we were meeting their requirements. At that time, CalPERS asked us to provide a revised draft report and attachments for their review prior to bringing it to our board today. After they completed their review, CalPERS asked us to make one additional revision. They asked us to make sure that an effective date was included on each of our salary schedules from 2012 to present. As we were adding these effective dates, because not all of them had them, we noticed that the effective dates could not be July 1st of the year for all schedules, as in previous to 2016.
As in the fiscal year?
Well, when you pass, like for a labor agreement, all the salaries are effective July 1st in a lot of agencies. However, in fiscal year 2015-16, our labor agreements didn't get passed on time. They were delayed. Yeah. So due to the delay of the passing of the labor agreements and also there was a second thing that happened. You hired a new general manager, and there was a lot of restructuring. There were a lot of restructuring with the district recommended by the new general manager. So that restructuring was approved in February of 2016 at the February 3rd board meeting, and the labor agreements were passed in May of that year, of 2016. So for fiscal year 2015-16, we ended up with 3 salary schedules. One that was effective July 1st, as in previous years. One that was effective in February, as of February 3rd, at the day of the board meeting, and one effective in May, May 15th, at the day our labor agreements were approved. So, due to the restructuring in February 2016, some additional revisions were necessary to the last two additional pay schedules that we needed to add. The positions of Director of Finance, HR Manager, and Harbor Master needed to be deleted, as these three positions had been replaced with two new positions of Director of Administrative Services and Director of Operations. Also, two new positions of Planner Analyst and Administrative Analyst had to be added. These are all approved by the board. Some minor revisions were also necessary to the 16-17 and 18-19 schedules to be consistent with actions passed by the board. They were as follows. The position of Office Assistant was added back to the 16-17 schedule, as it was not showing in the original schedule. The 18-19 schedule had to be updated to reflect approved salaries for both the Accounting Manager and Senior Administrative Analyst as of July 18, 2018 meeting that was passed at that meeting, and the salaries of the Director of Administrative Services, Director of Operations, and Harbor Master positions have to be updated based on board actions. Finally, we added some footnotes to each of these salary schedules in the interest of providing clarity and transparency so that people would understand why we have three schedules for one meeting. So to summarize this item, the staff recommends that this commission approve and adopt the updated salary schedules from 2012 to present to meet the requirements of CalPERS and the California Code of Regulations, Section 570.5, and adopt resolution number 19-03. And the motion that we're asking you to pass is to approve and adopt the updated salary schedules from 2012 to present to meet the requirements of CalPERS and the California Code of Regulations, Section 570.5, and resolution number 19-03. And we provided several attachments for your reference.
So I'll make a motion to approve and adopt the updated salary schedule from 2012 to present to meet the CalPERS requirements in the California Code of Regulations, Section 570.5, and adopt resolution 19-03.
If there's no discussion, I will second that.
Well, we need to still have the discussion. I just wanted to make the motion so that we didn't leave it off.
I don't have any comments. Do you, Ed?
No.
Okay, well, that's not true. I have one comment, which is, wow, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yes. But we're
And-
through, it did a big
Compliance,
amount of
yeah.
work. It did
Thank
start
you.
off as that.
Yeah, thank you for fixing it. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask, so we're all in compliance and we're good to go?
Yes, we've
Okay.
already sent drafts to the
To
CalPERS,
CalPERS.
and they're good with making those changes.
Okay, thanks for all.
Sure.
We just need a second.
We got a second
Nancy
already.
seconded, yeah.
Okay.
Ready for a vote?
Mhm.
President Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
Commissioner Wyrie?
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Aye.
Okay, next we have item 12.
Which is item 13.
Which is,
Are we doing,
well, it's reversed on here.
Okay.
So either,
I think I'm on the right one. What I
You
have
are.
in front of me is the budget review.
Mhm.
yeah, which
Okay.
is,
So it says here, I'll just go to the agenda.
it's the mid-year.
I think it's right in the agenda, correct? Yeah. So yeah, this is just the mid-year budget review, and Julie is gonna give us the staff report.
Commissioners, this item is informational only, and it informs us on the development of the budget for 2019, 2020. The following chart on page 13-2 summarizes the actual revenue and expenditures for the first 6 months of the fiscal year 2018-19 in comparison with a 12-month revised budget. That would be that would be 50%, half the year. The items listed below to explain some of the larger variances or substantive one-time expenditures are listed. For example, under the enterprise revenue, The district is 47% of revenue, and there is $200,000 that was budgeted for the SAVE grant, which is the Surrendered and Abandoned Vessel Exchange Program, and $275,000 for expected reimbursements for Oyster Point Marina expense. The first 6 months of the year, we received $56,000 in the SAVE grant, approximately $14,000 of OPM reimbursements. We will expect to get close to the $200,000 in the SAVE grant. So we are tracking close to budget on that line item. Other operating revenues, we expect the interest income will exceed the budget by approximately $100,000, and that's twofold. We're tracking a little higher in interest this year, but a large portion of it is that we expected in the budget to spend down our money on capital projects at a faster rate than what we're doing, so we have more money to earn the interest on.
So when you say that it'll exceed the budget, you mean exceed the budgeted interest income, not the budget different variation, right?
Right, the
Okay.
budgeted is interest income.
Got it, okay.
Yes, yes. In addition, there was a $920,000 budgeted grant reimbursement that's related to Pillar Point Harbor dredging project. And at the very earliest, that would be earned in the last quarter of the fiscal year. I know that John has been working on that project. Salaries and benefits are expected to be slightly below the budget, but if you look at this table, it shows that we're 60% of the budget, which would be 10% over what you would expect, and that's skewed because of a $2.3 million payment towards the CalPERS long-term unfunded liability. We will be slightly below budget because of all the position vacancies that were experienced throughout the year. Operating expenses, the district is at 58% of budget at mid-year. There are some items that have exceeded what we budgeted for, but this board has given the authority to spend up to a little over $3.8 million. We'll track that number closely because we're saving money in some of the other areas in the budget. And if at any point in time we feel that we would need additional appropriations to get through the year, we will probably ask to transfer them between the unspent capital project appropriations into the operating expenses. The biggest variance is in the capital project line item. It's where we've spent close to $900,000 versus a budget of $10.4 million. There's been a lot of progress on a lot of large projects, installation of new transformers for docks 1 through 6 at OPM and docks A through C at Pillar Point. Improvements of the Lassie sidewalk and parking lot, and purchase of 2 personal watercrafts at Pillar Point. The ERP software project funding is expected to be rolled over to next fiscal year, and staff will continue to proceed with board direction in accordance with the MOU with the City of South San Francisco for OPM-related projects. Permitting challenges have slowed the progress of many of the PPH-related projects, and project funding will be rolled over to future fiscal year appropriations as necessary and as approved by this board. The reserves were originally budgeted at $10.6 million. We will have larger reserves at the end of the year because we budgeted that we would spend $10 million, and that's not realistic at this point. So this is informational only. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay.
So thanks for that, Julia, very, very good information. So Anita, last year, we paid down 50% of our UAL. Do y'all have any idea, because we could have paid down the entirety of that, do you have any idea, and maybe too early, how much we might be able to pay down this year? If any, I mean, I'm hoping we can pay down some of it.
Well, with the amount of reserves that
Yeah.
we're projecting, it'll all depend on what the board would like to do. We can definitely come back with an item, and I'm sure Julie can discuss with her staff and decide if we want to recommend additional or, yeah.
Options, okay. I mean, because you have to find the sweet spot too, vis-a-vis operations. But I think it's a good practice to pay down as much as we can.
It would be all, what the board wants to do.
Yeah.
If you want to focus on your capital projects and don't want to take away from the reserves and you expect to
Yes.
spend more
Yeah.
quickly, I expect that if we continue at the pace we've been going the last couple of years, then our reserves are not going to go down,
Diminish.
they're just going to keep going
Yeah.
up, so.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, thanks. Thanks.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
So next we have the activity report.
No, we have item 12 or 13,
Oh,
or whatever.
Item 12,
which
I
is
got
the
out
Oyster
of
Point
order.
Club lease.
Okay, item 13, Oyster Point Yacht Club lease amendment execution.
This is mine. This is a motion to authorize interim general manager to execute a negotiated lease amendment with Oyster Point Yacht Club. The district has had a lease with Oyster Point Yacht Club since 1982, when Oyster Point Yacht Club spent $130,000 to construct the yacht club building at Oyster Point. The original lease was for a 25-year term and was renewed for another 25 years in 2007. Originally, the monthly rent was reduced, started at only $25 a month due to their construction cost investment, and has incrementally increased since. The current monthly rent is $285 per month plus 10% of member dues and rentals, no percentage of bar sales. The lease term now expires in 2032 and is currently not coterminous with the district's involvement with South San Francisco. It came to the district's attention that Oyster Point Yacht Club had subleased use of its leased property without district approval, which provided an opportunity to renegotiate and improve the historic lease terms. The district sent notice of default and subsequently negotiated an opportunity to cure. Oyster Point Yacht Club has agreed to the terms of the attached lease amendment as a means of curing. The proposed terms of the lease amendment are a significant improvement. Base increases doubles from $285 to $570. In addition to the increase in base rent, the amendment includes 10% of rentals, 10% of gross receipts, including bar sales, which was not previously included, and 5% of the yacht club bar service revenue from the new sublease activities. Other terms include the term of the lease will now be coterminous with district's agreement with South San Francisco and requires increased community use of the yacht club space. It now requires, or the new lease amendment would require the yacht club to submit community use reports biannually. All current terms of the lease to protect the district stay in effect. Lease terms place responsibility for maintenance of the structure on the yacht club. There's no risk to the district. The district has indemnity protection both under the lease terms and from the city due to any construction-related claims. Staff recommend the board authorize the interim general manager to execute the attached negotiated lease amendment with Oyster Point Yacht Club, which has been reviewed by District Council.
We don't have any public comment on this. Does anyone have any discussion?
I have a question, but I'll wait my turn.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
John, can you please elaborate on this coterminous provision? I know that currently we are not coterminous with with the South City. I guess I'm assuming it's the MOU. So what does it mean that the term of the lease will be coterminous?
Well, just, originally the district and South San Francisco's JPA terminated in 2026.
Yes.
With the new MOU, it does not expire till 2033.
Yeah.
The current lease agreement with Oyster Point Yacht Club expires in 2032. Should something occur, for instance, should the City of South San Francisco default in the terms of the MOU, should anything occur that would make our agreement at the City of South San Francisco terminate prior to the present end of 2033, we would still be obligated to the yacht club until 2032. So there's a risk there to the district should something change. Now that risk has been eliminated in the amendment. It just simply means that should something occur,
This would end as
maybe
well.
even a mutual decision between the city and the district, when our agreement ends with the City of South San Francisco, then requires no action on either party. Our agreement with our lease with a yacht club terminates at the same time.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure I was interpreting this correctly.
To clarify, the current lease terminates what year? I'm sorry.
2032. We're not extending the lease with the yacht club in this amendment.
Right.
And
This
so
is
that
just
this new lease, or is it an amendment? What is it?
Yeah,
Well,
it's an amendment to the original lease. The first
Would
amendment
terminate what year?
in 2032, same time as it did before.
Okay, so that hasn't changed.
It's
No,
just
we're
the
not.
increase in the rent
Yeah,
Okay.
we're doubling the rent,
Yeah.
and then we're
And
also
we're-
getting
and the bar
substantial
revenues.
bar percentage of bar sales that we never got before.
But
In
if,
addition to we're getting 10% of bar sales that we never got before, and we're also getting 5% of the bar service fees that the yacht club charges Dominic's, their sublessor.
Yeah, okay.
and so, so I understand this correctly, and the public understands. So if there was a termination of the MOU, then this lease would roll over to South San Francisco. Is that how that works?
No, it would just end.
Oh, it's just over.
The city of South San Francisco would not be obligated to continue this lease. This lease would be coterminous with our agreement with the city of South San Francisco. So should there be, whatever the situation might be, that the city and the district no longer have a relationship at Oyster Point Marina, then by no further action needs to be taken by either party, this lease would terminate at the same time the district's agreement with South San Francisco terminates.
Okay, and by community use, what is that? I don't recall hearing about that. What does that mean, this community use updates?
The yacht club has made efforts that we've observed to reach out to Alcoholics Anonymous and other community organizations to use their property, but we wanted to ensure that they are making a concentrated effort to do a little bit more of that. And so they are now going to be required to submit a biannual report of their activities, of the community use. And we'll be able
Okay,
to.
that's good.
That's
To
really
monitor
great,
that.
it makes it more of a public
Yeah,
facility.
that's a good
I
thing.
had a question about the improvements. The last capital improvements were made in the early aughts or back in the 80s?
For the yacht club?
Yeah,
It's the yacht club is responsible for all of the maintenance and the work that is done to their facility.
right.
the district, is not responsible for that.
Right.
They've just undergone recently significant improvements to the kitchen area, for sure.
Mhm.
And the yacht club built the building originally.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But but the original lease requires that they maintain the premises in accordance with standards imposed by the State of California Regional Water Control Board, and they've done a good job of that. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes, that's accurate. Yeah.
Great.
So I have another question.
Mhm.
So our JPA or MOU goes through 2036, right?
2033.
Okay, but it exceeds this lease,
Yes, by 1 year.
right?
Yes.
So, so if, let's say we continue with the JPA, and this is up, we would just renegotiate a new lease, or how does that work? I mean, if it's a 1-year differential?
Yeah, the board will make a decision in 13 years
Yeah.
whether or not to give 2-year notice to where
the
our,
yacht club.
to our arrangement at at Oyster Point Marina will continue or not. In 2031, 2 years prior to our MOU expiration, the board will have to make a decision whether or not to give notice of terminating our arrangement with the city of South San Francisco 2 years from then, because it has to be a 2-year notice.
Yeah.
Or we won't do anything, and then the arrangement at Oyster Point Marina will then continue on. If that is the decision of the board at that time, we would then renegotiate
Okay, that's.
with the yacht club, or it might be that we make a decision in 2033 to do something different. At that point, our lease with them is up, and arguably that building could become district property, and we could put out an RFP, or because it's a valid community yacht club, we might just want to renegotiate terms at that time.
Okay, great, thanks.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Where is that motion?
I'll just
I'll
make
make a motion to authorize the interim general manager to execute a negotiated lease amendment with Oyster Point Yacht Club, which has been reviewed by the district council to go up from $285 a month to $570 a month. And fees, and also take into consideration the rest of the terms of the lease.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Chantarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Raring,
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. So next we have the interim general managers and operations activity report.
I'm going to start off with talking a little bit about activities at Pillar Point Harbor. The Mavericks World Surf League surfing competition is yet to be held. They're waiting for a weather event with no strong winds or rain. The window opened again at the beginning of the year, in January 2nd. So it's now open until mid-March. Pillar Point Harbor staff have continued to do advanced training, as is an example of, which is pictured in the staff report there. It's one of the helo trainings that they've done recently, last month. Pillar Point Harbor has continued to be hovering right around 100% occupied, with a waiting list for many of the slips. The harbor staff, as usual, participated in multiple rescues and emergency vessel assists The extreme weather in January, as is this month as well, the strong winds and heavy seas that even impact the inner harbor have caused several boats to break loose from their moorings and anchorages. Staff was able to immediately respond to multiple incidents. And then those that they were unable to respond to immediately and get back tied up or brought into the harbor, they were able to pull off several boats from the beach that weren't damaged too bad. We do unfortunately have still, I'm hesitant to say four boats because one of them is no longer even a boat. It's all very well damaged.
Debris.
We've got, unfortunately, some of the vessels were in very poor condition prior to the storms. Our efforts in compliancy and ensuring or trying to ensure that the boats were seaworthy, not been completely successful, unfortunately. And these boats that are neglected are the ones that are most susceptible to the extreme weather events, which is largely why they're on the beach today. We're taking actions to, staff have been out trying to clean up debris, as are many of the members of the public as well. We'll continue to do so, and we're acting and acting as quickly as we can to remove these vessels from the beach in a responsible manner, to protect the environment. We've already got the Assistant Harbor Master at Pillar Point Harbor, Michael Williams, has acted very proactively to professionally gain quotes for the demos to get these vessels removed professionally, while at the same time working to the best of our ability with the owners to give them ample opportunity, if at all possible, if they wanted to try to salvage their vessels, to take responsible action. It's a continued challenge that we're addressing.
I have a question. So the vessels that broke loose from their moorings, those were, how can I say this, they broke loose not because of a failure of the mooring, they broke loose because of the failure of the way they were attached.
Only one of them came from our mooring ball.
Uh-huh.
The rest of them were anchored on their own ground tackle.
Uh-huh.
And the one that was on the mooring ball is arguable. Whether it was the mooring, it wasn't, the ball's still there.
Okay.
It is possible though that in that extreme weather that the ring at the top of the mooring ball may have failed. That's what
Okay.
the owners arguing at present, but we're acting responsibly. And that's one of the vessels that was in compliance. It was not that's a legitimate
Okay.
accident that occurred, in extreme weather. That boat, by all accounts, was not neglected.
Okay. Yeah.
The other ones, unfortunately, are historic problems for us.
Okay.
This is an
Thanks.
impressive number of search and rescues, late night rescue tows, patrol vessel and DHM calls. And I imagine that's a function of the unusual number of storms that we had in January, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
this is far above a normal month's
I wouldn't say far above.
Really?
If you look back at our history, the staff are quite active.
Very busy, yeah.
All year round, even in calm weather. There are accidents where people have fallen off cliffs or driven off cliffs.
Just different
respond.
kinds of problems.
Yes,
Yeah.
and just normal vessel breakdowns,
Yeah.
injuries, accidents.
Mhm.
Our staff do a great job at Pillar Point Harbor and at Oyster Point.
So is this, can I just ask, these first two items, the 10 search and rescue and then the 19 patrol vessel, are those 29 discrete incidents, or are the 10 included in the 19 patrol vessel calls?
Those are different instances.
They're different, so it's
Yes.
almost one a day.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, okay.
So, do you have something?
I just, can you please thank the staff of both places, both OPM and PPH, for the work? It's been, I know it's been consistent, but I think that the rough weather makes it not as attractive to be in this job. So I appreciate the work that they do. If you could let them know, great job, I think, then that'd be great.
Will do. And,
Thank you.
Yeah, I concur.
That comes from all the commissioners, I'm sure. That's,
And staff appreciates all the support from the board and the community. They do a great job.
They do.
Definitely.
All right, at Oyster Point Marina, we have been hovering right around maintaining 79 to 80% occupancy, which is a good occupancy for inside the bay. We've got heroic staff there that as well that respond to to many dangerous situations. During this recent storm activity last month and this month, staff have been walking out in the rain, checking on boats, putting pumps out on boats. They had 2 almost sink during the last weather event that they put pumps on, and also 2 sails that unfurled, and staff were able to bring the sails in, stopping considerable damage to the vessels in the dock potentially. They also were out today, as a matter of fact, doing some extensive training with the Coast Guard. So they're doing a great job with the training as well. And many of them, several of them, are helping out at Pillar Point Harbor as well. Because obviously we're manned at Pillar Point Harbor 24/7, 365 days a year. So, from time to time, we need to ask Oyster Point staff to come over to help, and they volunteer to do so, so that we're staffed properly, and we can respond to emergencies on the coast here. As far as the district overall, we are pleased to announce that Assistant Harbor Master Jim Merlot accepted the position of Harbor Master at Oyster Point Marina. Jim's been with the district for 15 years and just does a real good job at Oyster Point Marina. And really appreciate President Brennan and Vice President Marinas in helping with that selection. Michael Williams, we call Willie, was offered and has accepted the position of Assistant Harbor Master at Pillar Point Harbor. Willie has been with the district around 15 years as well, and has been lead maintenance specialist. Been doing an excellent job there, and with John Draper's retirement after 33 years, Willie has been the interim Assistant Harbor Master. So now he is formally the Assistant Harbor Master there at Pillar Point Harbor. Likewise, James Smith has been with the district for over 20 years, accepted the Assistant Harbor Master at Oyster Point Marina. We're still working through candidates for Harbor Master, for the open Harbor Master position at Pillar Point Harbor. We've got a couple candidates that are still under consideration, but we've not made a move yet for the Harbor Master at Pillar Point. That's all I've got.
John, it's always great to get these updates, and especially when we have a new board member, because it really helps when you explain things to give everybody a better sense of what's really going on, at each facility. And I was wondering, since we're doing an awesome job of updating the board on the search and rescue activities, which of course everybody's very interested in and appreciative of the harbor patrol's heroic work. I'm wondering if we could also start to track some of the flooding issues that we've got at Oyster Point, because it seems like that's something that we haven't really followed through on tracking, and it would be nice to get like a kind of an update on how many days per month we're seeing, and maybe there's a way to gauge it, like when it's flooded all the way up to the, harbor master's office, or if it's just like a partial sort of parking lot flood. Maybe there's a couple of ways to gauge the height of the water that we could, and maybe I don't know if we have, do we test for that, or we have any?
Yeah, we've got tide charts that give us an idea of, a very good idea
Uh-huh.
of when we're going to have flooding issues at Oyster Point.
Mhm.
But I think it would be beneficial to actually add in our activity report for Oyster Point, challenges when we have flooding every month, how many episodes we had. I know that I talked with Jim Merlot today, and over the last 3 days, they had extremely high tides and a lot of challenges there that staff have done a great job mitigating. They had to put out sandbags again, they had some burnouts, and staff step up and are kind of jack of all trades, if you will.
What do you mean by burnouts? Just so I understand.
The electrical shorts.
Oh, when the
the
underground
salt-
electrical. is-
Salt water gets up over the junction boxes, which make streetlights
Mhm.
no longer get electricity, and pop breakers. And before you can restore the electricity, you've got to find the place where a meltdown has occurred, a
Uh-huh.
burnout, and staff splice and work to replace the electrical lines. They've under Jim Merlot's direction, him having quite a history with electrical work. He's quite remarkable, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
He's trained our staff to lock out the electric boxes, and when we feel safe to do so, we address minor electric issues. Anything that is challenging, we err on the side of safety and call in electricians, professional electricians to handle it. But staff are most often able to replace simple breakers, and by locking out the power to the breakers, and able to restore power to the streetlights and to boaters electric pedestals, so that the liveaboard boaters have power again. I get very few complaints with regard to that, due to weather anyway. For the last 6 months, all of Oyster Point Marina has been on generator due to the development construction. So that's been quite a challenge as well, that staff have dealt with for us, with the tenants, being quite upset sometimes that they've lost power. To the development's credit, they do have monthly meetings. We've got another meeting tomorrow, at which time the public and the tenants, stakeholders attend those meetings, and the contractors listen to the feedback, and they've reacted. I've observed it firsthand when I've attended the meetings. Things were brought up either by me and my staff, or by the tenants that attended, and then the contractors have taken immediate action, all the way up to and including putting in new sidewalk by the restrooms with guardrails, putting in speed bumps, increased because of all the dust that's created by the construction. Increased water trucks, increased, just the other day when we were out there, I had to stop and slow down for a street sweeper. So they are taking actions, which at these monthly meetings, project meetings, the tenants appreciate. But it's, again, even though the tenants are also, and the district is benefiting by free electricity, because we're on generator there, it's still very inconvenient to not have power, and when the power does go out, our staff get the complaints and tactfully and professionally handle it, and we, as it filters up to us, Jim and I talk with the contractors and express our concerns, and I think they have been acting as professionally as they can. They've got, at our request, they've got 2 sets of generators, so at each location they've got a backup generator, but still sometimes both of those go out. Anyway, so staff get the brunt of the complaints, and they've just done an excellent job in mitigating those complaints.
How long is that gonna go on?
Another 4 months,
Oh my God.
at least. That's kind of optimistic.
Is there a staff person that attends the meetings with the developer while this is going on?
Yes, I've attended most of them.
Okay.
Tomorrow I've got a meeting with Bill, so I won't be attending, but Jim Merlo has already confirmed he'll be there.
Okay.
He's gone to everyone, actually. Everyone I've gone to, he's been there.
Do you think it would be possible to get those meetings videotaped? Because not all of us can make it to those meetings. I think that would be a possibility, that we could do something like that. I don't know, I'm just throwing it
Yeah,
out.
public meeting, anybody could,
Video.
could video.
Okay. That right now they're not, right?
Yeah, right now, there's no professional videoing of those public meetings taking place. Since I don't know that that's something we can discuss.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to necessarily, we've already got a good working relationship with the developer,
Mhm.
and we wanna maintain that for the best interest of our tenants.
Yeah,
And they're very responsive to our concerns at present, and we've been able to maintain that, but it'd be something worth looking into.
well, I'll try to make it, I just haven't been able to, I have another meeting that same night always, but it's a little bit later. Just to pick up on what you said about the power, I also heard that there were some issues with traffic now. Is that I think it's great if we could track the flooding events, because I think it would be good to see how that's shifting over the years, if the flooding is
Yeah.
getting worse, because I just saw that news program about the subsidence at SFO. There was an investigative report on TV about the airport sinking and the flooding, the standing water on the landfill. Reminded me a lot of the situation at Oyster Point. But I also was hearing about the traffic concerns. Is there a plan to alleviate the traffic issue? Has anybody started talking about that?
Well, with the development at present, there used to be, 2 roads going into the eastern harbor. At present, there's only one. So, and it's obviously a narrow road, which on the high tides, it's 6 inches underwater at some places. So, anybody driving to the east side, to the east docks 12, 13, and 14, have to drive through 6 to 8 inches of salt water, which is also a significant concern.
Okay.
The traffic issues that none of the construction drives on that road. They have their own entry for the construction vehicles. the traffic concerns that I've heard voiced have just simply been, people speeding, down that, since now there's only one road, and it's just a narrow 2-lane road, people speeding and people, walking across the road to, from one parking place across to their berths, are seeing these people that are going at high rates of speed. That's one of the reasons why it prompted putting in the speed bumps that they've done,
I saw those.
and then also the smaller speed bumps as well. They were limited to some degree. They actually put in more, but the fire department balked. So, enforcement there for the speeding is I guess really the only traffic concern at present.
Okay, that was very interesting, because I didn't know about the flooding. I wasn't thinking about the flooding on the only road now, so that is just, I'm trying to visualize all that. But I was hearing from some tenants that, they were having a hard time getting onto the highway, onto 101 from, where they live on a boat, that there's some significant traffic problem.
Okay. There's also been a complaint from when the main road was closed and this new alternate road was put in. There was at the first meetings I was at, there was complaints from the tenants with regard to the new road, because it kind of was made through the beach parking lot, that there was not ample turn room, that trucks, for instance, that were pulling in, or buses, Genentech buses, as they were making the turn, it was not funneled out to where they could make a nice narrow turn. They'd have to make a wide turn, which was stopping traffic from exiting.
I see.
So that was one concern, which after discussion with the tenants and staff, they ended up making a cutout to where now it is much wider and easier to get in and out of. And then another concern was that there's not before the exit entrance had its own street light. Now there's not a street light there. So I have heard concerns, and I've experienced it myself, when all of the traffic coming out of the propeller buildings and everything going down Oyster Point Boulevard toward 101, you have to wait there for quite some time before you can make the left turn, because there's no street light anymore. So that is going to be an ongoing concern until the new road is put in place.
And when is that supposed to be?
4 to 6 months
Okay.
before they're going to get off of this road and be able to put in the new road up on top of the new elevation.
Okay.
We'll know more actually tomorrow. They'll
Yeah.
update us on the schedule.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I think, is that it? No, we have more. We have the, activity report for administrative services.
So this will be my last activity report for the Department of Administrative Services, as Julie has taken over that role in February, so next time she will be doing that report. Basically what I do when I do these reports is I ask all my staff to tell me what they've been working on during the month. And one of my staff is totally dedicated to Public Records Act requests, because we get a lot of those. As you can see, we received 5 new ones in January. We completed 7, and there's still 2 ongoing from previous months. So what happens with some of those is that there's so much information they're asking is that we have to do it in batches. The accounting staff, our accounting manager, as most of you are aware, has been on paternity leave for 6 weeks. He will be actually coming back this week, I think tomorrow, or tomorrow, Thursday, yeah. so it went fast. But his staff has been amazing, they've been really good at covering for him while he's been gone, and they provided everything that needed to be done. The payroll was processed on time every time, the accounts payable work and the accounts receivable, the cash batches, everything was done on time, there were no issues. The reconciliation of all bank and investment accounts was done on time. There's an audit, fiscal year 17-18, that is in progress. We don't have a report yet, but they asked us to check their spreadsheets just in case there was some of the information that they gathered, if they had any errors in it. So that was done. Also for this board meeting for February, they start working in January, usually the previous month, and to prepare all the reports, because it takes some time, and we have to get it to our staff that's going to be putting together the board packet. So the bills and claims, the legal fees, spreadsheet, the quarter two investment report, the quarter two financials, and the quarter two mid-year budget review report, all of that needs to be done. And they're either done by our accountant or our accounting specialist or our accounting techs. So all of that was done. There were 4 grants that reimbursement requests were either submitted or are in progress or were in progress as of the end of January. The special projects staff's working on, they're trying to create some process manuals so that we have stability as far as, processes, in case somebody was to leave and there was turnover, the next person would know what the current process is, so they're doing accounts payable process manual.
Mm-hmm.
There's the lease renewals for the postage machines, they're setting up vendor accounts. They're constantly looking at ways of improving efficiencies, and we're doing a lot more stuff electronically now rather than having to be in person, which is really great. And most of the credit goes to our county manager and his staff. Supplemental scheduled property usage, 2019 report was submitted to San Mateo County. The 1099s and the 1096s were submitted. Use tax, current contracts were reconciled, and what happens is our accounting tech lets us know when a contract is going to go over budget so that we can do an amendment. He monitors it very closely, and it really helps management as far as staying on top of things. Our payroll at the 457s account, that's something new this year that we started contributing to the 2% employer contribution to the 457 or the FSA, the flexible spending accounts. So that required a lot of work for our accountant to work with ADP, our payroll vendor, to make sure that everything was done on time, and staff started benefiting from that. The payroll holiday premium, because of the holidays in January and February, they had to work with ADP to make sure that changes are implemented. And quarter-end journal entries for accruals, that was something that I got the privilege of approving this time, since the accounting manager wasn't here. And the quarter-end rent report for future board meetings. Human resources, that's an area where we only have 1 staff person dedicated, and I think that's something that might have room for improvement. She mostly ends up doing a lot of risk management, from my perspective, of explaining benefits to people, processing pay increases, and doing paperwork and tracking FMLA usage. A lot of it is more clerical in nature rather than doing some just looking ahead and seeing how we can improve our human resources. And I think that might be a result of, because we used to have an HR manager and now we don't. So people get kind of spread kind of thin, and the director of administrative services is kind of spread thin, trying to make sure everything's working right. But we are doing what we need to do as far as employment recruitment, because there is a lot of help from management and now from commissioners, and we're getting our recruitments done. And we also are using our consultants, RGS, to help us with those services. So they do a lot of interview setup for us, and just screening the applicants and so forth. So it's working pretty well. I just see there's some areas where we can improve on that. And then lease administration, that's an area that definitely needs more review, and that's gonna be Julie's problem now. But we definitely need to look at the leases, as we discussed at the retreat. Policy update, finalized policy 3.0 on standing committees, ready for copying and distributing. That's basically, when she says finalized policy, basically what the staff person is doing is making sure the heading's correct, the dates are correct, copies are made and distributed, put in the appropriate manuals. The RFPs, formatting and proofing, this is all administrative work. And then numbering, just clerical in nature. Sample packets for interviews, work with training officer. Now that we have a training officer, that person is requesting some staff support, which our administrative staff is providing.
Where does it say about the training officers?
On the last page, under operations. So Lori, our receptionist and administrative assistant, she is providing some staff support to the training officer, Carrie Fish, Carrie Smith? What's his last name?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Carrie Smith.
Yeah, Carrie Smith.
Yeah. So,
And training, by training we mean like.
Staff training, all of their rescue,
Rescue.
firefighting.
Right.
Carrie's been tasked with putting together a matrix spreadsheet with each staff, deputy harbor master listed, with Debbie, Betty, and Lori have been helping in reviewing, going through each staff member's files while maintaining privacy, but getting all of their past training and creating one spreadsheet that tells us or helps Carrie understand who's due for renewed training. You
I
know,
see.
CPR, AED, and all of the rescue training, extensive rescue training that they do expires. You know, it needs, if not annual, some of the training is every 3 years. And rescheduling those that need the new training, keeping up with it.
Carrie is great,
Makes
so
good
can you
sense.
thank him for that too? It's a lot of work, I know, and it's not always fun, but he's the perfect person for that job.
so, I'm sorry, should I continue?
Yes, please.
So as far as lease files, there's always, letters that need to be sent out for increases, certificates of insurance sometimes need to be requested. So Lori ends up doing a lot of that, and this is mostly her administrative section, that all the copies and everything that she needs to do. And then she says callers with requests for information whenever somebody calls. In this case, it was something related to Mavericks. But just to add, one thing that we don't capture in the administrative report or in the operations report is all the work that Debbie does, in addition to what she provides support here. She's in charge of all the, well, since she reported to the general manager, I don't even know everything she does, but she can tell you briefly as to what she works on, because there's a lot. Go ahead. I should have added it.
You know, I say it's a million little things. It's just
The permits.
whatever, yeah. Commercial activity permits, those are kind of what I have done in the fall, and so right now I'm wrangling in the others. I sent out a nasty gram to just remind people to send those in, and so that prompted some phone calls to kind of get those back in, but working on the packet, I don't know, it seems like nothing when it's just the board packet, but there's like a million little things.
She's constantly busy ordering supplies for us. Anything that we don't know who to turn to, we go to.
I think
the
the board
catch-all.
does that too.
The website,
The website,
So,
Board retreat.
Everything.
Yeah.
Thanks, Debbie.
Yeah.
She's the go-to person.
Yeah.
for
She's
a lot
the
of
big
things.
boss.
Right, that's a
So
lot.
in the future, we might want to add it to the, since a lot of the work she does is administrative in nature, I thought about that kind of suggesting it to Julie that we might want to add a section or something.
It's funny because I told Steve one time, I'm like, nobody knows what I do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I just kind of fall.
That's just what she needs, another job. Do
To
an activity.
tell us what you do.
I have an inkling, and I'm the newest member, but I do feel like this district staff is a well-oiled machine, and honestly, I just am so pleased to be a part of this. I think you make our job really easy. It's my experience so far, thank you.
Yeah.
We've been lucky, I mean, I feel very lucky have gotten the staff I did in the administrative section. They've been wonderful.
Yeah,
Well,
It's
you've
a
been a
good
great manager in
team.
here too, so thank you.
yeah, it's a great team. To pick up on what you said about the HR manager, it reminded me of, I'm probably the only one here that was around when we actually did have an HR manager, so that I can recollect when that was. Yeah, so I guess it'd be interesting to follow that going forward to see if, if that's something that, because that kind of works with training too, like, because there are other types of trainings besides just like rescue and fire and that sort of thing, I know. And if we had an HR manager, like you said, we would be looking ahead and
Proactive, being a little more proactive on what we should be doing. I thought about bringing it up to John, and then, we can come back with a report and a recommendation if we want as to what things this person may or may not do, and if we want to assign it to an analyst at a vacant position already, or if we want to reclassify the position. It's going to be something that John and Julie and, I can definitely help and working on a report.
Yeah, as of February 18th, we're glad that Julie's, come on board, and we're very lucky to have Anita remaining to help us out as well.
Yeah.
We're down still several staff. Katie from Pillar Point Harbor, is not with us right now. She's out on maternity leave. We're getting Boomer back tomorrow. Again, we're very fortunate that Anita was able to stay with us, but Julie and I have discussed, our way forward a little bit with the administrative services, and Julie's going to get kind of her feet wet and determine, from her perspective, what staff expectations should be, and then fortunately we still got Anita. They'll talk and we'll use Anita as much as possible, but ultimately Julie will make a recommendation, and we may kind of limp along here until we get a new general manager too, that may very well have an idea and his or her own ideas for organization. What I want to kind of stay away from is making us any more top heavy in any particular area when a new general manager, she or he may end up having a whole different idea, from based on their experiences elsewhere that have been successful.
Yeah.
That we don't necessarily haven't experienced. So
Yeah, that makes
we're
sense.
going to kind of keep the boat afloat and keep going and make progress, but not make any not lock in a new general manager. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, we did that the last time we were in the process of hiring. We kind of held off on any major changes so that person would be able to kind of figure out how they want their team set up. So that makes sense.
And Julie needs time too to based on her past experiences and expectations of staff, and being able to we've got great staff, and and see their strengths and weaknesses and figure out where exactly we might need somebody.
Great. Okay, I guess we're ready to go to the next thing, which is the social media public outreach committee summary from the 2/4/2019 social media public outreach meeting. So Nancy is the chair of this committee, so do you want to talk about it and give an update? We kind of already voted here earlier on something, but there was more to the meeting.
Yeah, there was, so there was a lot of good discussion at the meeting about why we are interested in having this policy. That we have a strong desire to have regular outreach to the community through a social media policy and also through other outreach like safety training, CPR training, educational opportunities for school children and young people to come to the harbor to learn about what it is that takes place in this really unique fishing port that we have here, this really vibrant and beautiful community on the coast well, many of the commissioners probably know that some people who live in the landlocked parts of our county have never been out here. Children and their families have never been out to the coast. They don't understand that this is where a lot of our local fish comes from. They don't know what a fishing community is. They just haven't experienced this beautiful place at all. So, had a lot of good discussion and ideas around those thoughts. And then we decided that I would serve as chair, and I don't think that we worked in the meeting on the description of services to be performed, but we've had a motion to adopt those tonight. And I'm sure I'm leaving something else. Sabrina, what do you recall?
Well, I think what we decided was we needed to get the policy for social media approved so that then Fondini could move forward with actually setting up accounts.
Right.
So I think now that we've done that, we can move forward, and since Fondini is here, maybe you could say a couple words, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of remind us of, like, now that we've got this policy behind us, what's the plan?
Hi, I'm Joe Falcone from Half Moon Bay, and I'm the CEO of Fondini Partners LLC. Now that the revised electronic communications and social media policy has been approved, the committee agreed that we would go ahead and fix or establish the LinkedIn account for the Harbor District, and then create or fix the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts for the district as well, and start putting content out on those. And then in addition, because the original board report from January 10th specified community outreach, we amended our original proposal to include a community outreach component to bring in from the greater community school children, community representatives, what have you, even college students, whatever we want to do in terms of our outreach to the harbor, do tours about the history, the functions, the safety, everything else. And then in the process, we've identified 2 sources of funding to help us with transportation and other costs. One is the Whale Tail program, and the other out of the Coastal Commission, and the other is the Explore the Coast program out of the Coastal Conservancy. And those are both really exciting. We've got a deadline in April for Explore the Coast, and I think in around September for Whale Tail. This is really exciting because it means we can not only reach out to underserved communities, disadvantaged communities in San Mateo County, but we can go further inland and reach out to other communities and and arrange for transportation and education and other services for them and bring them to the harbor, show them what we've got, explain how it works, just as the commissioner has stated, and really share with the greater Bay Area this fantastic resource we have. So my team's very excited about this. We're ready to move forward with it. One of the members of our team is the Coastside representative for SAL, the Sheriff's Activities League. So she's certainly going to be working with SAL to bring a group in from that organization. And so this is the first 90 days. So what we have is a 90-day contract to move forward with this. So our goal is to bring in 3 groups during the first 90 days, or roughly that, depending on how the startup works out. And we're just about in the right spot to try to get school groups before the end of this school year. And then evaluate it and decide how we want to move forward after that. So
I have a question, because you're triggering my memory of what happened. It seems like a long time ago when we had this committee meeting. It wasn't that long ago, but a lot's happened. So we did talk about the school groups and the tours, which is really exciting. Could you just talk a little bit more about that? Because not the whole board even has a clue what you're talking about. Just, to kind of explain it and.
just getting my own notes.
And how much is that gonna cost?
The approved proposal
Budget.
was
So this is part of
15,500.
This is part of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
15,500 total.
It's a pretty.
No,
What?
I know, I just didn't know if if this is included in that.
Yes.
Okay.
So when we expanded the proposal because of the board report and because we were able to identify local community resource and Amy Broom, who is very well connected in the community. And so the idea of bringing in school groups from different parts of the county, and as well as community groups, scouts, STEM groups, coordinate with schools in terms of things like Ocean Week or Science Weeks or education on climate change, all that kind of stuff. Bring in naturalists, fishermen, ecologists, bird watchers, what have you, to try to make a kind of a full rounded view of what we've got here, so that when people come here, it's not just a fishing port, right? It's got recreation, it's got all these other things, got wildlife, got all these other things going for it, and explaining to people, the history of it, and why we have it, what we have to do to keep it going in the future as climate change, things like that. So, we could probably keep people here for 2 or 3 days if we wanted to, going through everything. But, the idea is to make it a reasonable tour so that the kids don't get bored, or the community groups don't get too bored, and keep it moving, and give them a little taste of everything, is the idea. And we've been talking to people like at the Fitzgerald Reserve, at Año Nuevo, at Pigeon Point, how they do their tours, how they organize their docents. So we're going to be recruiting a couple of docents who are either retired teachers, retired fishermen, yachtsmen, whatever, people with experience in either in the harbor or with the community, and using them as our ambassadors, as it were, into the community. So, and then coupling that with the resources John has, and they already have some experience in giving tours and showing people around, but we want to kind of create a formal pattern so that we can just kind of push a button and say, okay, we got a group coming in, let's go and do it, and we'll have a set course, as it were, set menu do this, so.
So I have a question. So how are you going to benchmark whether or not this is successful within the 90-day period? Do you have any metrics that you're going to be using? What are you going to be using?
We're gonna be doing surveys of the groups to get their feedback.
And how are those survey questions going to be derived?
We're going to be asking them about all the different kind of parameters. Did they think it was the right length? Did they get the right information? Basically, all the sorts of things you'd expect to be asked if you were brought to some place new, had to look at it. Did you, was it relevant to you? Did you just want to go home immediately? Things like that. Amy's got a lot of experience with both Amy and Dan, Amy Broom and Dan Glick. They've worked with school groups for years.
I want to just chime in because I know Commissioner Chang Corrali wasn't there, but Amy, she's...
Wasn't at the committee meeting?
Right, at the committee meeting. Amy used to work for the Half Moon Bay Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I know who she is.
Okay.
I don't know her, but yeah. I
Yeah,
know
so
her.
she's definitely somebody who's very connected, and I think I was really impressed by her. She was at the meeting, and it sounds like she's already been doing this type of work with organizing groups of children, and she's got some pretty clear ideas about how she wants to do it. But it's a start. It's like,
No, I know, but I think we have to be able to benchmark it so that we understand what is successful. That's what I'm asking.
yeah, and I'm sure that that you guys want to create a tour that works. So
Well,
you're-
yeah, I mean, it's a benefit to be
That
able to
wants to-
benchmark the success.
Yes, we want to
Or the
entertain
improvements.
and to inform the people so that they have a good time here.
I think part of what is going to happen out of this outreach too is an opportunity for commissioners to go into some of these cities and towns in the county and talk about what it is that we do, maybe at town council meetings. But, we're going to be drumming up interest in this program, I'm assuming, at least in part. And it's a public relations effort. There is a long-term benefit to be gained here, I believe.
And that's kind of what outreach is about.
Mhm.
I mean, that's an important part of the committee. A couple other things that we did discuss was, we talked about opportunities for the tours to educate other agencies, so staff and electeds potentially. Not to say we'd be doing that right away, but we'd be able to educate people that maybe are on a city council in, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw out Burlingame or something, and give them more information so that they can pass it on to their constituents in their meetings and help educate, because they can help us get the word out about the district and why people might want to come here and experience the coastal trail, experience the opportunities for buying fresh seafood direct from fishermen. I mean, there are just so many opportunities. So I think, bringing other leaders up to speed on what we're doing is hopefully, and hopefully a fun environment and a fun experience would be good for the district. And in addition to the school tours, which I think you covered really well, that's a huge endeavor right there. We did talk about possibly eventually setting up a weekend tour. Maybe it's not every weekend, maybe it is, but like a certain time on a Saturday or Sunday where people can count on, there's always going to be a tour if it's sunny on, at this time during one of the weekend days. And I think where we left things, and we did talk about the docent program too, which would take some time to develop, but I think starting small makes sense. It's certainly been incredibly successful and popular at the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve and some other places on the coast. But I think the thing that we kind of left with was that there was gonna be some kind of coordination meeting between, Fondini and the staff, and particularly the Harbor Patrol, because this would be a team effort where everybody needs to coordinate and work together. And, so I'm not sure where we left that. So
And Joe's been getting on me.
okay,
I've
I know you're busy.
I've been, Carrie Smith is helping us get with Oyster Point Marine as well, and
Yeah,
getting with staff, all of the different, right now, we've been a little bit disjointed, you know, not having, one person as we have now with Carrie to kind of oversee and better organize our, outreach and all of the efforts that we do with community, you know, with different staff going to schools, and
Mhm.
it's just kind of been something, well, I've always done this.
Mhm.
And so we've got staff at both facilities that have always done this and that have their own contacts with local schools or
Mhm.
community groups, and they just do it. And
That's great.
they've been authorized by me over the last 2.5 years to get overtime, to do those kind of community events. If it's, you know, not on their regularly scheduled work days. Now, with Joe's help, Fondini's help,
That's great.
first of all, Carrie is compiling all of those groups all the work that we've already been doing.
The regular,
Yeah,
things
what
that
we're
happen.
already doing,
Mhm.
and compile one list with contact information so that we can, let Joe's team know where we're at now. Then Joe's team can,
okay,
you know, get back with us and kind of decide what new things we're gonna bring on, or if we can further develop those as well that we've already got going, because we definitely won't wanna lose the great work that staff's already been
Already
doing.
been doing,
Right.
yeah.
right.
I agree.
And we can maybe supplement that, but I do also wanna mention that, one of the things that came up during our, committee meeting was that it would be beneficial to have a calendar on the website, so that once we do figure out all the things that are already happening that nobody on the board knows about, we can look at the calendar and we can see what kinds of community outreach things are planned. And Debbie has already put a calendar on the website, so that's a new
Oh,
feature.
nice.
Fantastic.
And the board meetings are already on there, and you can click the board meeting and you go to the agenda, which is really convenient. So it's like a quick way to get to the agenda, or the right agenda for the date. So I think the plan then would be that stuff will get moved onto the calendar eventually.
Yeah. So I have a quick comment. So I failed to mention earlier that I was at a Marine Protected Area Working Group meeting, and attended were folks from NOAA, California Academy of Sciences, some folks from the Fitzgerald Reserve, County Parks. And so I told them about this new effort that the district has, and so I have some names for you from Cal Academy and from NOAA, because they're interested in what we're doing. I'll send them to you.
Great.
Great.
Anything else? Any other questions about this?
Nope, then I'll move to adjourn, which is the last item.
Okay.
I'll second.
Yep, great.
Okay, let's see, President Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryder,
Hi.
Commissioner Chankrell,
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Hi. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Debbie.
You're welcome.
And number with all
Let's
the
see what happened.
Oh,
I got,
Was this, did you bring these tonight?
I just asked Debbie to give it to me so that I could flip through it, but sometimes I take, it's nice, yeah, sometimes I take, takes my old packet out of my computer and I get new
The
one.
dates